Hey, hi, how you doing? This is the Gamertron and welcome back to the Gamertron Show. So I've finally and recently played Mass Effect Andromeda. However, I want to stress this, I have not beaten the game yet. So I, in good conscience, cannot qualify this video as a complete review of any sorts. Nor can I call this a first impressions video, as I have put 50 hours into the game already. You see, when it comes to Mass Effect Andromeda, like open world and open world-like or open world-esque, RPG, narrative-driven, epic video games like it, for examples The Witcher Free, Dragon Age Inquisition, and of course this game's predecessors, the Mass Effect trilogy, just to name a few games in this type of genre. You see, when it comes to these games with such an epic scope, they all share a similar quality, and that's a nearly overwhelming amount of quantity in content. These types of games are huge. Mass Effect Andromeda is huge. Trying to 100% or even just play the main story quests is not something you can do in 10 or even 20 hours. I'm not gonna lie, when I finally got Mass Effect Andromeda, it took me a while to really get the nerve to play the game, because I knew as soon as I started playing it, it's gonna suck me in, and there's gonna be an overwhelming amount of content to see and do. So much dialogue, so much backstory, so much lore, so many characters, so many plot points to remember, so many resources to collect, so many locations to visit on the open world map. So it's easy for me to say this right away. If you are someone who values quantity of content and or are a completionist when it comes to your video games, Mass Effect Andromeda will not disappoint in that regard. There is always something to do, whether it be in the single player or the multiplayer. Now, before I jump into my thoughts and feelings and opinions on the game, keep in mind that these are incomplete. I have not beat the single player campaign, I have not progressed nearly enough in the multiplayer. Again, I've only played 50 hours of Mass Effect Andromeda, and I'm nowhere near done, and this is a game that can be played through multiple times in terms of single player, and a very replayable multiplayer with very lengthy progression. I've only put 10 hours into the multiplayer and 40 hours into the single player. So however you want to personally describe this video, as initial thoughts or a pre-review, whatever, I want to talk about this game, I want to make a video about this game. As a matter of fact, a video on this game is long overdue, so let's get into it. For those of you who don't know, the Mass Effect trilogy, specifically Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3, are some of my favorite video games of all time. And BioWare's previous game before Mass Effect Andromeda, Dragon Age Inquisition, was my favorite game of 2014. So when I heard Mass Effect Andromeda would be borrowing elements from Dragon Age Inquisition leading into its release, that Andromeda was going to be some sort of love child of Inquisition and Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. I of course had my anticipation and excitement. I love Mass Effect. So seeing the series taking a new direction, going off in a spin-off story, with new characters in a new setting, I was certainly interested to see where they were taking the series, where they were taking this game. However, my anticipation and excitement had its many highs and lows leading up to release, and even after release, with all the controversy and rumors and so forth. Now, months after release, finally playing the game myself after several patches and hotfixes, and free content updates, I think that's something I should emphasize. I did not play Mass Effect Andromeda at launch, and I know Mass Effect Andromeda on launch was a very different game than what it is today. So my thoughts, feelings, and opinions are based on the game we have now, today, and not the game at release date. I think it's fair that I point that out. Now, there are 3 topics of discussion I want to engage in when it comes to Mass Effect Andromeda. 3 topics, 3 aspects of the game that I think are most prevalent to this particular video game. Before I do so, let's take a look at and just engage in the more obvious qualities of Mass Effect Andromeda. Like I said earlier in the video, quantity. There is a great deal of content to experience in Mass Effect Andromeda. Customization around every corner, whether it's the physical appearance of your main playable protagonist, Ryder, your armor, your weapons, your drivable vehicle, the Nomad, of course your skills and abilities, and then there's the customization in multiplayer, with the several different playable characters to unlock and play as and customize. There's a plethora of weapons and abilities. All the weapons I've played with so far have been satisfying. I look forward to trying the rest, however that's going to take a while because I cannot express this enough. There are a lot of guns in Mass Effect Andromeda. A lot of guns. If you like variety in your arsenal of weapons, You got it here. The game is chock full of lengthy story quests, side quests, fetch quests, collectathons, enemy outposts to clear out. Look, the short and sweet of it, what I'm trying to get at here, there's a lot to do in Mass Effect Andromeda. You will not be lacking content to consume. And then there's the graphics, the visuals. Mass Effect Andromeda is a reminder to me that I seriously need to upgrade my dinosaur of a PC. As I'm sure you can tell by the gameplay of this video, my rig struggles to even run this game at high settings, and it still looks gorgeous. I also decided to play a bit naughty and dangerously, and raised all the graphic settings up to ultra. The game ran like a slideshow, but my god, was it a beautiful slideshow. Mass Effect Andromeda is one of those games on PC I'm really going to be anticipating replaying once I've upgraded my PC and I can play this baby at ultra settings at 60 FPS. Oh god. But even at high and medium settings, Mass Effect Andromeda is a good looking game. Stellar, detailed texture work, beautiful special and particle effects, phenomenal lighting. It's just a damn good looking game. It's a pretty game. And before I move on to the big free topics, you gotta mention them companions. What is a BioWare game without romanceable companions? And while I'll admit right off the bat, the characters, the companions in Mass Effect Andromeda are nowhere near as memorable or as endearing in the companions in the Mass Effect trilogy, but the companions in the original trilogy had free whole games for character development. This game has only one. Well, it's one game, no duh. But in my 40 hours in the single-player campaign so far, I have grown to really like some of the characters. Liam is easily likable with his constant positivity and need to help others. Cora seems like an interesting character with vulnerabilities. PB is PB. I'll just say she's unpredictable. However, my favorite companions so far have gotta be Vetronix, Drac, and Jal. Of course, all my favorite companions are the weird-looking aliens. I just really enjoy the personalities, the voice work, and the interactions that these companions have with you and with each other. Okay, all that's out of the way. God damn it, we're 7 minutes into this video. Let's actually talk about the title subject of the video, shall we? What I find unique and interesting and really worth talking about when it comes to Mass Effect Andromeda is its story, exploration, and combat. First up, story. Story is one of the most important, most memorable, most cherished aspects of the Mass Effect games. And so there was a lot riding and a lot of anticipation and interest in Mass Effect Andromeda's story. Now, I haven't beat the story yet, so I can't speak at length or give a clear and complete opinion on the story. I can only talk about what I've experienced so far. I believe Mass Effect Andromeda has a strong opening. It does a good job in introducing you to the setting and premise of the game, while introducing you to characters, drama, conflict, and generating mysteries and questions for you to answer and discover. But after the first opening hour or two of Mass Effect Andromeda, I find that the tension and the drive that was in the Mass Effect trilogy story beforehand is somewhat missing from Andromeda. Now, I don't think it's fair to completely compare Andromeda to the previous games. I personally have a philosophy on looking at a game on its own, letting it stand on its own 2 feet. And Mass Effect Andromeda's story, so far, on its own, is decent. It's competent. It fulfills its job of introducing the player to the world they will be inhabiting, the objectives they need to complete, and acting as a segue into the gameplay. However, when we do compare Mass Effect Andromeda's story to the story of the previous Mass Effects, like I said earlier, I find that the tension and the drive, hell, even the tension and drive in Dragon Age Inquisition story, I find to be lacking in Andromeda. What do I mean by tension and drive? Well, in the previous Mass Effect games and in Dragon Age Inquisition, those games put you in a pivotal role, and while you are in a pivotal role in Andromeda, and the game, through its characters, through its dialogue, really goes out of its way to stress you are important, you as the player character are important to this world, the circumstances around me don't look or feel as important or as grave. Whereas in Mass Effect 2, there was the threat and the mystery of the collectors, and in Mass Effect 3, there is the constant threat of the Reaper invasion, and in Dragon Age Inquisition, there is the fear of all-out war breaking out and the destruction of the world from a demon invasion. Whereas in Mass Effect Andromeda, your playable character, Ryder, Sarah or Scott Ryder, or your own custom name Ryder, male or female, ends up becoming the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder's occupation is to discover new worlds for colonization by any means necessary. There's not as much tension or as dire circumstances as previous BioWare games. In the Mass Effect trilogy, you're a captain and commander, leading a squad of the best from around the galaxy to stop galactic genocide. In Dragon Age Age Inquisition, you are the Inquisitor, whose job it is to save the world from chaos, despair, and destruction. So out of all these descriptions, these free descriptions for the protagonists of these games, which one sounds cooler? And which one sounds the least cool? Pathfinder, Commander, Inquisitor. However, after everything that I've just said, I wouldn't consider this an actual issue or a problem. It's a change in tone. I'm not saying in Mass Effect Andromeda there aren't dire circumstances. The game goes out of its way to tell you that you are, but that's the thing about Mass Effect Andromeda compared to the Mass Effect trilogy and Dragon Age Inquisition. In those games, they show you how dire things are. You feel how dire things are. In Andromeda, it just tells you how dire things are. And then there's an interesting case of ludonarrative dissidence between the player and the avatar. For those of you who don't know, ludonarrative dissidence means a separation or a contradiction between what the player wants to do and what the avatar supposedly wants to do. Now, I don't want to spoil too much in this video when it comes to story, but there's a point in the story where you discover this alien technology that can really help your cause. So you're searching around the galaxy for more of this alien technology and knowledge on how to use it, and it's a race against the clock because there's this evil alien race called the Ket that wants this alien technology for itself too. And that's just a slight continuation on the premise of the main story, but the thing is, the next aspect, the next topic I want to talk about gets in the way and in times inserts ludonarrative dissidence into the story, and that's exploration. Exploration is a brand new aspect in terms of what we had in Mass Effect games beforehand. And no, I'm not counting Mass Effect 1, I'm sorry, but there was nothing to explore in those barren wastelands in Mass Effect 1. And I'm not knocking Mass Effect 2 or 3 when I say this. Mass Effect 2 and 3 didn't really have exploration in any sense. They're far more linear games in terms of level and map design. Mass Effect Andromeda borrows heavily from Dragon Age Inquisition in that it gives you these open world environments to explore. In Dragon Age Inquisition, you were exploring province after province, and Andromeda, it's planet after planet. There's a rocky mountainous planet, 2 desert planets, an ice planet, a jungle planet, a planet filled with rivers and valleys and mountains and occupied by alien outlaws and bandits. There are several different environments, several different planets to actually explore. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, with the quantity of content and the beautiful visuals, these environments are stunning. They look beautiful. This is one of those games where you want to stop and stare and take screenshots of the beautiful visuals and environments. The scenery, the landmarks. Like I said earlier, Mass Effect Andromeda is a pretty game. And also, like I said earlier, there's so much stuff to do on each of these worlds. There's enemy outposts to clear out. There's looting for items and resources. There's an abundance of side quests to complete to level up your character and companions. And you get to drive around in these big open environments with your all-terrain vehicle, the Nomad, which I found genuinely satisfying to drive. Andromeda can be surprisingly relaxing as you're just driving around these beautiful environments while your companion characters chatter and talk to each other in the background with some genuinely funny and interesting and every once in a while heart-wrenching dialogue interactions. You see, when it comes to the story of Andromeda, the story of Andromeda really wants you to play the main story like, oh, this main story is important, you're important, you gotta go do this important thing. And while the main story so far has been enjoyable, I've had so much more fun just exploring the environments and doing side quests and clearing out enemy outposts, looting for loot, gathering resources, driving around in the Nomad, and just seeing and doing everything there is to see and do on these planets. But hey, I'm still technically early in the story. Perhaps the story is really going to amp up and raise the tension and raise my engagement levels, pull a twist that makes me go, oh my goodness, I gotta see where this goes. But right now, I guess technically early into the game, I'm having the most fun in the single player campaign right now, just exploring the environments and doing all the side and collective content outside of the main story. There's a lot of interesting and satisfying side characters and side stories, so much lore and backstory and world building to absorb, which is not a feeling I ever really had in the original Mass Effect trilogy. And I think I've kind of figured out why I have these different feelings, these different play styles, when compared the Mass Effect trilogy to Mass Effect Andromeda. In the Mass Effect trilogy, I'm engaged in the main story, I'm engaged in the conflict, in the drama, whereas in Andromeda, I'm I'm more engaged in the subtle and little things, the environment, the sense of discovery and exploration, whether it be for more backstory and lore or resources. And then it clicked. It clicked in my head what is so different about the Mass Effect trilogy and Mass Effect Andromeda. The Mass Effect trilogy is Star Wars, while Mass Effect Andromeda is Star Trek. Really think about it. The original Mass Effect trilogy is all about a war, a conflict between good and evil. Granted, it's far more complicated and diverse than that. I'm oversimplifying things, but go with me on this. Commander Shepard and his companions and all the alien races he's gathering are the Rebellion, while the Reapers are the Empire. Whereas in Mass Effect Andromeda, Sarah and/or Scott Ryder is Captain Kirk or Captain Picard, and the Tempest, your spaceship in the game, is the Enterprise. Where the evil aliens in Andromeda, the Ket, they're the Borg or the Romulans. And it's not really about a war. There's conflict, sure, but it's more about exploration and discovery. Just something I found incredibly fascinating when playing Mass Effect Andromeda and comparing the original trilogy to the new game. There really is a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, a lot to look at. But the last topic, the last aspect, the last mechanic and feature of Mass Effect Andromeda that I want to talk about, this is my favorite part of Mass Effect Andromeda, and believe it or not, this part of the game is why I recommend Mass Effect Andromeda the most, even if you don't like the story, or even if you're not a big fan of exploration in video games. I still recommend you try Mass Effect Andromeda for this reason alone. The combat. The combat in Mass Effect Andromeda is the best combat in the Mass Effect game series. Now don't get me wrong, Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 are both solid third-person shooters. Hell, I've been playing Mass Effect 3 multiplayer for years because of how solid the third-person shooting is, how solid the gameplay and combat is. And goddamn, did they improve and add when it came to gameplay and combat. Mass Effect Andromeda feels so much more smoother, a lot less clunky. We now have a light automatic cover system instead of a hard cover system. All the powers and special abilities are more devastating and flashy and awesome looking than ever. We now have an assortment of melee weapons to choose from, including a Krogan hammer, an Asari sword, and of course that badass Omni Blade, as well as some elemental gauntlets, and the sound effects for everything: movement, gunfire, explosions, that squishy and crunchy sound when you get a headshot. Mass Effect Andromeda's combat just looks and feels good, but they had to add even more to the gameplay with the new movement system, with the new jetpack and dash system. You can now perform a high jetpack jump anywhere in the environment and scale the environment. Environments and level designs are far more vertical than in previous Mass Effect games. Hell, the level design is far more vertical and dynamic thanks to the movement system than in most other third-person shooters. And the ability to dash and dodge gives you viable movement and combat strategies when you have no cover around. Oh no, you're surrounded by enemies and there's no cover in sight? Hurry, jump, dash, dodge around. I gotta admit, just jumping and dashing and mantling and climbing objects and buildings and rooftops is quite satisfying. I'll admit I wasted quite a few hours just platforming with the movement system for the hell of it. The advanced mobility system combined with the far more smoother shooting and flashier, more destructive combat with abilities and weapons can make combat scenarios in the single-player campaign a blast and a visual spectacle. But even more so in multiplayer. Combat really shines in multiplayer with a variety of different playable characters and working alongside other players with different characters, different weapons and abilities, and comboing your arsenal to take out hordes upon hordes of enemies. And the free enemy factions in the game, the Outlaws, the Remnant, and the Ket, are all equally satisfying, fun to fight and kill. The Remnant always explode upon death. The Outlaws have a shocking variety of different enemy units utilizing the different alien species in the Mass Effect universe, all with different abilities and strategies you gotta look out for. The Ket are also a satisfying foe to fight with their gory headshots, special units that can go cloak and cloak their friends, and two of the most powerful and deadly heavy units, their heavy units feeling like mini-bosses in themselves. The enormous Fiend and the imposing Ascendant. Keep in mind, I already loved the combat from the previous Mass Effect games, and in Mass Effect 3 in particular, I adore the PvE co-op player versus AI multiplayer in that game. And that glorious multiplayer returns in Andromeda without any major changes, and you know what? I'm happy with that. The new combat and movement system already makes it refreshing, exciting, and fun as hell, and as the old saying goes, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. So, even if Mass Effect Andromeda's story and exploration isn't your thing, even if it doesn't click with you, if you played Mass Effect free, and you liked Mass Effect free multiplayer, hell, if you like third-person shooters and you like third-person shooting combat, then I can easily recommend Mass Effect Andromeda and that you at least give it a try. Because again, I can't stress this enough. The gameplay, the shooting, the movement, the abilities are all smooth, versatile, and fun. And there's a great deal of customization, whether it's in the single-player campaign with how you customize your rider, or in multiplayer with the multiple different playable characters, including actual alien races from the single-player that you can play as in multiplayer. I always loved that in Mass Effect free multiplayer, being able to play as the aliens, and that once again continues in Andromeda. I mean, come on, who doesn't want to play as a Krogan bashing people's heads in? And yeah, those are my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on Mass Effect Andromeda so far. Keep in mind, so far. I will be making multiple Mass Effect Andromeda videos in the future, including a more complete and full review commentary once I finish the main story campaign and progressed much farther in the multiplayer. However, this video here and now has come to an end. So, did you like the video? If you did indeed like the video in any way, shape, or form, please be sure to hit the like button. Hitting the like button helps you, helps me, helps everybody involved with the video. If you hit the like button, if you want to help out and support this video, then please share it on social media, Twitter, and Facebook. Please leave a comment in the comment section down below. I love reading comments. I get nearly enough comments. What are your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on Mass Effect Andromeda and on this video? Let me know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions in the comment section down below. And if you want to help out and support me directly, well, there's always Patreon. Anyways, guys, this has been a video, and I'll see you all later.